If you are interested in pursuing grad school, or if you are already a graduate student, you may be wondering, is writing essays in grad school difficult? Well, today we are discussing what makes writing in graduate school difficult and how to improve your essays quickly. This video is specifically talking about essays that you have to write at the end of a class. I will in the future have videos that talk about how to do specific analytical essays for graduate students and research essays for graduate students. So if that's something that interests you, definitely don't forget to subscribe. And the first thing that comes up is the length. In undergrad, you are usually expected to write anywhere from 1 to at most maybe 10 pages for an undergraduate course. Unless you're in some type of special senior thesis or honors program, that's about a reasonable range as an undergraduate. As a graduate student, depending on if you are in a semester system or if you are on a quarter system, you may be expected to write much more. So as a graduate student, if you are expected to have anywhere from 10 to 16 weeks of courses, then you're probably going to be expected to write anywhere from as little as 8, but as much as 30 pages for your assignment. Now, I know you might be out there panicking because you've never wrote anything. I specifically remember being an undergraduate and it taking me 9 months to write my 14-page senior thesis. And then I remember being in my master's program and it's taken me 6 months to write 40 pages. And so I think it's important to reaffirm that writing is a skill. And like any skill, you get better and more efficient at it. So even at this point, if you are applying to graduate school, or maybe you're in your first year and you've never written that many pages before, don't panic, because with time and practice, it will become a lot more easy and efficient to write your graduate papers the more you get to know yourself as a graduate writer. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean there aren't ways to make that process easier. It can be intimidating and overwhelming to have 3 15-page papers due all in the same week. Or you may just not feel confident in a specific topic because you took a new class and now they're expecting you to write a 20-page paper about it. To combat this, one of the things that have been extremely useful for me is to block out or spread out when I write across the quarter or across the semester. And so what this means, in many of your classes as a graduate student, you won't have exams, you won't have tests, and you won't have quizzes. So you can dedicate your entire quarter, your entire semester to the paper that you are writing. And so by creating an outline and beginning writing your paper as soon as you feel able can help you spread across 6 weeks, 7 weeks worth of writing instead of having to bring it and condense it all into 2 weeks before the paper's due. And so maybe spending, a week writing the introduction, then another week writing a next section, and let it go on and on throughout the semester versus waiting until the finals time to bust out your papers. This may have worked for you in undergrad, and it still may work for you in graduate school, but if you're feeling intimidated about the workload and the length of the paper, spreading it out across time will definitely help you make it more manageable, especially as more and more papers start to build up on each other. Now, the length of the paper may not even be that big of a deal if you felt like you had more time or more space to think. So the next thing that makes writing essays as a graduate student difficult is just the workload or the time that you have to do it. Now, this is very specific to students who may not have gotten a full ride or stipends and may have to work as a TA, a graduate student researcher, have a full-time job, be part-time. These types of restrictions or obstacles can make writing difficult because so much of writing in graduate school is about thinking. And while that seems pretty straightforward and obvious, it's really hard to think when your brain power is being divided up amongst many different jobs, many different responsibilities. If you're a parenting student, if you are somebody that has a disability, there's all these other lists that add on that can make writing more difficult. And so it's important to be aware of this while you are going in or before you're going in, so you can start to build infrastructure into your life to prepare or create systems to help you approach these obstacles. So specifically for our students who may be living with disabilities, and this could be physical, intellectual disabilities, or other types of concerns that could be protected under accessibility, I would encourage you to go to your accessibility office and try to be represented by them. At UCLA, it's called the Center for Accessible Education, and this center really advocates for our students to have more time when they are writing papers or doing their assignments, to have different types of instruction or support, or a tutor, or a transcriber, or somebody who is interpreting. So if you are somebody who may have that concern, definitely advocate for yourself. And all major institutions have it. And you may not know they exist or how to do it, but if you go onto campus first day and ask about it, there definitely will be somebody in your department that will help you get access to that. If you are a parenting student or time management or working many jobs is an issue for you, then something else kind of connected to the previous advice about spreading your writing out across your semester or through your quarter is to make sure that you are trying to schedule in time or delineate moments for you to just think. And again, I know that sounds silly because you want to write, but sometimes writing is very difficult if you don't know what you want to write. So by sequestering yourself in an office or taking maybe 20 minutes out of every day to maybe lock yourself in the bathroom or in the shower or something like that, to just think about what you are writing about, what your course is about, and then to write little notes for yourself. So when it is time to sit down and write your assignment, you have ideas that you've been thinking about or pondering over an extended period of time. Whereas other students who may not have obstacles, may not have responsibilities, may not have to be caregivers or disabilities, they may have, like myself, time to sit down and say, oh, what do I want to write about? And spend hours in front of a computer. But if you don't have that luxury, then spreading out your thinking time, writing notes about your thinking time, and then when you get to the computer, using that to kind of bring it all together, aggregate your thoughts, and develop a paper can definitely help you move forward. So the next thing that could make writing in graduate school a little bit more difficult is the content. And I mean the content in what is the expectation for you as the writer and a graduate student. So in undergrad, when you are writing, you are usually synthesizing or bringing together the information that was presented to you in the class. In graduate school, you are expected to not only take the information that you are receiving in class, but also to expand on that topic and to bring in your own unique perspectives. And so this can change what or how comfortable we are engaging with the material, because in undergrad, you kind of know what your professor or what your TA would want. You know they're gonna want you to talk about these specific books because they talked about them a lot, or maybe these specific documentaries or lectures. In graduate school, while you are expected to talk about the topic or the main theories or concepts in the class, you pretty much have a little bit of free reign to add on, to expound on what's going on, to demonstrate or practice your skills of becoming an intellectual or representing yourself as an intellectual. So what this means is when you are writing your content, don't just regurgitate what is being said in class or what you think your professor wants to hear. Instead, start to ask different questions. And I actually have a video that discusses ways to read more efficiently or to be prepared to hold discussion in class. And even though that's about reading and discussion in courses, the questions that are presented in those videos can also help you think about other questions to incorporate within your writing. Ultimately, all graduate school is about thinking outside of the box or building onto the field. So if you can take the guiding questions that are in those videos, which will be linked at the end screen, and work to incorporate them into your writing, it can help you as a writer really build on or take the reader into a deeper conversation or a more fulfilling analytical view than just regurgitating what you discussed in class. Now, directly related to the content, a difficult part about writing essays in graduate school is you may not feel like you have the expertise, or you may feel like you don't know enough about a topic, and one 10-week or 16-week course just won't cut it. And so you're very unconfident or not prepared, or you feel unprepared prepared to write a 15 to 30 page paper about a topic, and that's totally okay. I think one of the things that come about being a graduate school is that we have this false belief that we need to know everything and to be experts. But when we are writing as graduate students, that process isn't just about demonstrating what we know. Instead, that process is also helping us explore what we don't know and practice finding the solutions or the answers that are useful for us. And so when we are in our classrooms and we're expected to write a grad student essay or a grad essay for a class, but we don't feel prepared to answer the question or to approach the content in a sophisticated manner, I think it's important to remind ourselves that it's okay if we do a little extra work to figure out what we want to say, or if we approach it in a kind of more exploratory fashion and start meeting with your professor more often or talking with your fellow graduate students to better get an understanding of what your perspective is, what you think may be a gap or a unique perspective. And again, in the videos that will be at the end screen, there'll be more about how to find gaps and how to read critically so you are prepared to write. But something that can totally be useful for you as you're trying to figure out how do I take, maybe 2 pages worth of confident knowledge and expand it to 15 to 30 pages worth of knowledge is to outline your paper as questions rather than points you're trying to make. So as you are creating a structure for your paper, you may be more used to writing, this is what I want to prove in this paragraph, these are the supporting elements, this is what the conclusion or significance of it is, and now I'll move on to this next piece which supports it in this way. But instead, perhaps you should structure your outline as guiding questions. And so as you are approaching your paper, you're not coming in as the expert showing you what you're going to prove, but instead you're saying, okay, these are the questions that I would like to explore or understand better. And so when you get to your first paragraph or your first page and you read the topic sentence, but instead of a topic sentence is a question, then you know exactly where to move next. What is the next step? If the question is, why is Barney green? Then you know, okay, I need to go find some literature that's discussing green, Barney, and maybe some color theory. And then you can bring that in and present a new perspective and start to build from the readings in the syllabus. Because again, you don't have to start from scratch. You should be engaging with the materials in the syllabus. So by using the syllabus as a guide, by outlining your paper as a set of questions rather than points you're going to demonstrate, and then bringing in materials to help further answer that question where the syllabus may not be able to, that is a great structure to expand on your knowledge, but also fill in your 15-page or page requirements. So the next thing that is difficult in writing as a graduate student, especially essays for a class, is your writing style. Many professors will have their own particular expectations for how an essay should be written. So if it is your first time taking a class with a professor and you write a very specific way and you get back a paper and it seems to be marked or graded poorly, it may not be the content itself, but rather the style or the words or whatever that you chose to use. And so I think this makes writing in graduate school difficult because it has an emotional element that is not technical. You never know what the expectation of a professor is until you get to know them. And you also may not even know what your own writing style is until you get to practice it over and over and over. So there may be moments where you are being evaluated unfairly, or you feel like you are not being, or your grades are not represented or representing the work that you are putting in. And that can feel very frustrating. It can be overwhelming. It can be upsetting. And I think it's important to know you are not alone. Writing style develops over time. Some people come in with some natural tendency to write in academies and professors love them. Other people like me speak very casually. And some professors are okay with it and other professors think it's an abomination. So it's important to be able to be self-aware, to try to support yourself, but to also remember your writing style doesn't necessarily denote your intelligence. However you write is a style. It's an art form. It can change and be molded based off of the situation. But you made it into grad school, which means you are in fact smart. So there's no need to internalize other people's insecurities or expectations based off of your writing. Now that's all hunky-dory, but at the end of the day, you still need to graduate. And so some of the things that have helped me as an individual deal with these uncertainties that come with writing styles and trying to make sure that you make good grades is, one, ask around with fellow graduate students. Ask them what were their experiences in certain classes with certain professors. What were their experiences grading? If you know that there's a class that was particularly hard, you should probably ask why. Was it because they were grading your paper? Is it the content? Is it the theories? So you can get a good understanding of what may be a future obstacle. Then if you find out a very specific professor has a very particular writing style, then I encourage you to, again, try to develop a community with your graduate students, maybe develop a relationship with somebody in the writing center or another professor to help go over your assignments every week or before they're due to make sure that you are polishing or hitting those notes. I also think a good starting point, if the professor is approachable and kind and doesn't haze or isn't rude or abusive, it's very useful to go to their office hours often to discuss writing, to discuss your style, to even maybe do practice written papers so that professor can help guide you into developing that skill. Now, of course, this may feel weird because you may feel like you're changing yourself for academia or you are, compromising who you really are. And I do think it's important to make sure that you hold on to your values even in your writing style. However, a class is a class is a class, and if you can't get a different professor or take that class with somebody else, it is important to still try to make the grade. Unless it's not important to you, then do what makes you happy, because at the end of the day, that's what this is about. But it can be seen as a skill set if you learn the kind of disciplined way of writing or the academies that they're trying to enforce in you. And then you have that in your back pocket just in case you need it, but you can always continue to write in your style. So it's important to make sure that you know what are your values, but again, to implement structures to help you succeed in what you define as success. So if you are somebody who does want to get the A, or if you're somebody who wants to preserve your writing, just make sure you are implementing the strategies that support you as a graduate student and to help you feel successful and supported and mentally and intellectually stable. Now, I say this all to say it's important to remember that reading, writing, discussions in grad school are not actually about being smart, but rather they are skills. And these skills are tools that you get to choose to use as a graduate student to communicate your points, your perspectives, and your knowledge in the way that you think is best. And so if you are somebody that is coming in with a very specific knowledge or skill set, but don't feel confident in your academic reading and writing and discussion, I would check out my past videos or this playlist on reading and writing in grad school. If you found at least 2 things useful, definitely hit a thumbs up so YouTube can share this video with others that need it. Your support helps a small YouTuber like me continue to grow. So I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.